Sauron did not lose the War of the Ring because he lacked armies. By the end, he had more soldiers, more fear, stronger fortresses, and the land built like a trap around the one place that mattered. He also did not lose simply because he was arrogant, though he was. Arrogance is the easy answer, but it is too soft for what Tolkien gives us. The mistake that cost Sauron the war was sharper than that. He believed the ring could only be understood as a tool of power, so he could not imagine a strategy built on refusing power. That is the door he never guarded. Not because he lacked intelligence, but because his intelligence had become the shape of his own desire. The short version is this: Sauron planned for a rival ring lord, not for a ring destroyer. He expected the strong to take the ring, claim it, and challenge him with it. That expectation was not foolish on the surface. It was based on everything the ring usually did to people, and on everything Sauron knew about himself. The ring was made to dominate other wills. It promised control, order, command, and victory over enemies. So Sauron assumed that anyone who possessed it would eventually think in those same terms. A king would use it as a king's weapon, a wizard as a wizard's weapon, and a desperate army as its last impossible advantage. This is why his eye turns toward the great. He watches Gondor, Isildur's heir, the wise, and any sign that a new master has appeared. But the real plan is carried by a hobbit with no throne, no army, and no dream of ruling. Sauron loses because the smallest plan is the one his mind cannot make room for. It can sound strange to say Sauron failed to guard Mount Doom. Mordor was not exactly open countryside. The land is ringed with mountains, watched by fortresses, patrolled by orcs, and poisoned by fear. The road to the fire is not an unlocked back door, but there is a difference between guarding a place and believing anyone will come there for the right reason. Sauron defended Mordor against invasion, rebellion, espionage, and military threats. What he did not truly prepare for was a bearer entering his realm to end the ring. That possibility was not absent from the map, but it was absent from his moral imagination. The Council of Elrond sees the problem from the opposite side. The wise do not ask who can use the ring best. They conclude that no one can use it safely. That is a hard conclusion, because the free peoples are badly outmatched. They are offered the one object that looks like an immediate solution. Yet Gandalf and Elrond understand the poison inside that solution. To fight Sauron with Sauron's own masterwork would be to let his logic survive, even if his body fell. Sauron cannot believe that this conclusion will hold. He knows the ring is tempting, and on that point he is right. His mistake is assuming temptation is the whole story. The ring does not tempt everyone with the same costume. Boromir imagines a weapon for Gondor. Galadriel imagines terrible beauty, and Sam briefly sees a garden turned into a vast ordered realm. Those visions are different, but the grammar is the same. The ring says, take control, fix the world, bend resistance, make reality obey. That grammar is Sauron's own language. He is not merely a tyrant who wants a crown. He is a maker of systems, hierarchies, engines, and obedient wills. Tolkien repeatedly shows evil as a desire to arrange the world without allowing other beings to remain free. Sauron is brilliant at that desire, so when he thinks about the ring, he thinks like its author. He understands possession, calculation, intimidation, and command. That is why he can predict many reactions accurately. He is not wrong that Boromir is vulnerable, that Denethor might be driven by fear, or that a mighty claimant would be dangerous. He is wrong about the final moral possibility. He cannot grasp that someone might carry the supreme instrument of command all the way to its birthplace in order to surrender it to destruction. In Sauron's mind, power justifies itself. If you can take it, you take it. If you can wield it, you wield it. The idea of freely unmaking it looks to him like madness, weakness, or a disguise for some deeper bid for control. This is where Aragorn's role becomes so important. After the Fellowship breaks, the ring does not go to Minas Tirith, to Rivendell, or to any battlefield where Sauron's gaze naturally rests. It goes into the dark with Frodo and Sam. Meanwhile, Aragorn steps into the exact story Sauron is prepared to believe. He reveals himself through the Palantir. He claims the identity of Isildur's heir, comes to Minas Tirith, wins a battle, and marches toward the Black Gate with a force too small to conquer Mordor. From the outside, this looks almost irrational, but to Sauron, it makes a terrible kind of sense. He thinks he is seeing a new ring-bearer grow bold too soon. He thinks Isildur's heir has taken up the old prize and is trying to master it before mastering himself. That is the bait. Aragorn does not need Sauron to be stupid. He needs Sauron to be consistent. The March on the Black Gate works because it offers Sauron the kind of enemy he believes in. A claimant, a commander, a king with a hidden weapon, gambling everything on a final stroke. Sauron reads that pattern because it is the pattern he would choose. He empties attention toward it, and for a little while, two exhausted hobbits become almost invisible inside the one land where they should be impossible to miss. There is an important objection here. Frodo does not stand at the fire and calmly throw the ring away. At the last moment, he claims it. The ring wins the contest inside him, and if the story ended only with Frodo's willpower, the quest would fail. So maybe Sauron's real mistake was not strategic at all. Maybe he loses because of providence, because Gollum is spared long enough to fall when every ordinary plan has collapsed. That reading matters, and it is part of Tolkien's design, but it does not cancel Sauron's mistake. It deepens it. Sauron fails to understand not only renunciation, but also pity. Gollum survives because Bilbo once pitied him, because Frodo later restrains judgment, and because even Sam does not simply cut him down on the mountain. These mercies look inefficient in the language of war. To Sauron, they would look like loose ends. To the story, they are hidden roads. The final destruction of the ring comes through a chain of choices that Sauron would never have valued. Pity for the wretched, endurance by the weak, friendship without reward, and a mission whose success requires not possession, but loss. Providence in Tolkien does not usually erase human choices. It works through them, especially choices that power cannot understand. So yes, there is grace at the ending, but Sauron's blindness is the opening through which that grace enters the war. Think of the whole conflict as a battle over attention. Sauron sees armies, borders, bloodlines, weapons, oaths, and signals from ancient stones. He sees the visible architecture of power very well. That is one reason he is so frightening. But he misses the hidden architecture of the story. He does not see how Bilbo's mercy in a cave can matter more than a fortress. He does not see how Frodo's smallness can be a protection. He does not see how Sam's love can keep the quest alive after every grand design has failed. Most of all, he does not see that the ring is most dangerous to him when it is not being used. While it is being claimed, worn, or fought over, it is still inside his world. But while it is being carried towards destruction by people who do not want to rule, it becomes an answer to him from outside his logic. It becomes the contradiction he cannot solve. That is why arrogance is too vague. Sauron is arrogant, but his fatal error has a shape. He mistakes the desire for power as universal. He assumes every serious opponent must eventually become a version of himself, and because he thinks that, he helps the deception succeed. He stares at the king, the army, and the challenge he understands, while the end of his own power walks in rags behind his walls. This interpretation makes the ending more than a lucky accident and more than a military trick. It turns the destruction of the ring into the answer to Sauron's entire worldview. Sauron believes history belongs to the will that can dominate the most completely. The ring is that belief turned into an object. The quest says the opposite. The decisive act is not taking the enemy's power and using it more nobly. It is carrying the enemy's power until it can be unmade, even when it wounds the bearer beyond ordinary healing. That is why Frodo's victory is not clean triumph. He is saved, but he is not untouched. The story refuses the fantasy that good people can handle absolute power without cost.
It also refuses despair, because the world is saved through people who are not strong in the usual sense. Sauron's war machine is beaten by a fellowship of limits: a wizard who will not take the ring, a queen who refuses it, a king who uses his throne as a decoy, a gardener who gives it back, and a wounded hobbit who carries it beyond expectation.
The great mistake was Sauron's belief that power is the deepest truth about people. Tolkien's answer is that pity, humility, and self-surrender are not decorative virtues. They are strategic realities in a world Sauron cannot fully read. So the mistake that cost Sauron the war was not that he left a volcano unattended. It was that he could not believe the ring's enemies would choose to one action that did not imitate him. He could imagine conquest, theft, fear, rivalry, and betrayal. He could imagine a king raising the ring against him, or a wizard trying to master it for some bright new order. But he could not imagine two hobbits crawling into Mordor with no plan to rule anyone at all. He could not imagine mercy becoming a weapon without becoming cruel. In the end, Sauron is defeated by the thing he dismissed as weakness, not by innocence alone and not by strength alone, but by a stubborn refusal to make his idea of power the measure of the world. That is why the ring has to be destroyed, not captured. If it were only taken from Sauron, his argument would survive in another hand. But when it falls, the argument falls with it. The world is not saved because someone finally uses Sauron's power correctly. It is saved because for one impossible road, enough people refuse to become what he understands. Thank you for keeping the Black Quill Society company in the archives tonight. If this little expedition into dangerous jewelry earned its candlelight, subscribe, pull up a chair, and I will see you in the next one.